Black CEO ridiculed by billionaire white family, then she cancels the 900 members deal. Midnight light poured from the chandeliers of the West Haven Grand Ballroom, scattering silver across marble like secrets smashed into glitter. Lauren Carter, a black CEO, stood beside the champagne tower in a minimalist dress that refused to beg for attention, spine straight, gaze steady. The Harringtons lounged by the bar, Eleanor's diamond choker crisp as frost, Victor's cufflinks flickering, like declarations. Victor snapped his fingers. "You there? 2 martinis. Extra cold." Eleanor measured Lauren up and down. "And maybe try to smile, dear. Guests remember service?" Lauren didn't move. She traced the rim of a flute, coaxing one clear note. That cut through the chatter. "Strange," she said softly. "How easy it is to mistake quiet with small—" Victor smirked. "Strange how staff forget the schedule." The bow of the first violin trembled, recovered, then glided on. Lauren angled her phone toward the light, thumb hovering over a single unsent command. "Careful," she murmured. "Your assumptions age badly under bright bulbs." Lauren stood beside the champagne tower while the quartet's melody caught on a rough edge, then slid back into polished calm. Chandeliers flung splinters of light over marble veined like pale rivers. Eleanor Harrington eased to the center of attention. Diamond choker bright as frost, smile practiced to look generous while measuring everyone who wasn't family. Victor drifted at her flank, cufflinks blinking, fingers ready to snap the way some people breathe. He pointed at an anxious waiter. "2 martinis, extra cold?" Then his eyes skimmed Lauren as if she were a seasonal display. "Someone looks parched." Lauren didn't take the bait. She angled her phone toward the chandelier's blazing core and spoke into the microphone with a voice that barely stirred air. "Hold the deal." One quiet instruction, no flourish. The screen pulsed once and slept. Eleanor's laughter grazed the edges. "Do we know you?" she asked, tone crisp. "This evening is private." "I'm aware," Lauren said. Victor stepped closer until cologne smothered the florals. "Awareness isn't clearance. Credentials." The nearest usher hesitated. The demand sounded routine, yet the temperature shifted. Emily Stone, a young reporter camouflaged behind a satin wrap, raised a compact camera and pretended to admire a table card while focusing on the cluster forming near the tower. Across the aisle, Jamal balanced a tray of flutes with surgical steadiness, shoulders tight, eyes tracking Victor's hands. Lauren slid a laminated pass from her clutch and held it level. "Satisfied?" she asked. Eleanor glanced without touching. "We'll decide after a proper look." Victor plucked. The badge with 2 precise fingers pinched it like an insect and gave a test tug. Laminate split with a crisp tear that traveled farther than any shout, interrupting conversation at 3 nearby tables. The quartet stumbled, recovered, then played on with a small tremor you could feel more than hear. Champagne winked along. Rims. Someone laughed too brightly. Lauren's expression barely moved. "You just destroyed property," she said evenly. "We replace counterfeits," Victor replied, letting a sliver fall. Emily tilted her camera to capture that glinting chip spinning across the marble before it died near Lauren's heel. Eleanor turned her shoulder the way queens beckon servants. "Security," she said, without raising volume. Reputation carried the word. 2 guards approached, shoes whispering against stone, faces arranged for diplomacy. Jamal inched closer, tray hovering at his side, breath quiet yet visible under the lights. One guard stopped at a respectful distance. "Problem?" he asked. Eleanor lifted the torn pass like evidence. "Imposter. Remove her politely." Lauren's phone hummed within silk, as if the earlier instruction had shaken distant rooms. She didn't look down. "Before anyone escorts..." Anyone, she said. Check the guest ledger and sponsor registry. Eleanor's smile cooled. Our team wrote those. Then accuracy should please you, Lauren answered. Whispered currents swam through the hall, slipping around topiaries and the charity stage where sponsor logos cycled. A minor glitch held one slide half a heartbeat longer than the rest, enough to make 3 donors squint for meaning before pretending they hadn't. Emily noticed. She kept filming faces. Victor rolled the laminate between forefinger and thumb until another crack broke the hush like a dry twig. Don't perform, he said. This isn't a stage. Lauren kept her cadence steady. Careless judgments. Turn rooms into stages. The shorter guard studied her eyes, weighing risk against procedure. Would you come with us to verify? Lauren shook her head once. I'll stand here while you check. She tucked the phone back into her clutch, without hiding the glowing line that read, Hold confirmation pending. Jamal set his tray on a side station, then stayed within 3 steps, posture straight, gaze steady. Victor's voice softened into something that pretended kindness. Name? She let silence answer. Eleanor tried again, silk wrapped around steel. Who invited you? Your office, Lauren said. If hosts decide to respect, maybe teach it first. Eleanor's mouth compressed. Tone, she warned. Mutual respect saves cost, Lauren replied. Emily captured micro-expressions. The matriarch's chill gathering at the edges, the guards shifting weight, the server's hands tightening on linen, the glittering debris at Lauren's shoes. Murmurs rose, not hostile, just eager, like dry, leaves catching a wind. A donor asked whether the pass color looked off. Another wondered if gatekeepers ever double-checked themselves. Eleanor gestured to the guards again. Anteroom, now! I won't leave the floor, Lauren said, calm as water. Commitments require visibility. Victor smiled with polished pity. Visibility is earned. He almost snapped, then thought of cameras and rubbed a cuff instead. Please, he added, insincere courtesy polished by habit. The quartet drifted into a slower passage, as if the score understood the air had tightened. Crystal chimed. Plates touched linen with small size. Jamal remained where he was, no tray now, simply presence. Emily shifted behind a pillar that reflected the chandelier's heart, giving her a mirrored angle that doubled every expression. The taller guard eyed the badge pieces, scattered like confetti from a party no one ordered. He tapped his radio. Front desk, confirm guest under torn pass number. He paused, then added quietly, Review recent sponsor notes. Eleanor cut across the line. No need, she said. Escort. The shorter guard rubbed his temple. If we miss something, responsibility sits with us. Eleanor didn't blink. We always own outcomes. Lauren breathed in, then spoke again into her phone with the same unbothered cadence. Hold the deal, she repeated. Proceed only after formal respect appears. She ended the call and lifted her gaze to Eleanor. We can avoid damage. Victor's laugh had edges. Damage arrives for pretenders. He lifted another strip of plastic and snapped it in 2, scattering the halves. The sound drew the auctioneer's eyes and pressed a hush across the center of the hall. Emily caught the falling pieces, then tilted up to frame Lauren's face, which hadn't shifted. Jamal took a measured step so he stood just off her shoulder, still silent. Eleanor nodded toward him without looking away from Lauren. Attend the tables. He didn't move. Lauren acknowledged him with the slightest softening at one eyelid, then returned to the matriarch. You called security while destroying. The very proof you demanded, she said. Accountability could start by picking up what you broke. Eleanor's chandelier light sharpened across the ballroom like frost catching sunrise, brightening crystal prisms while murmurs skimmed the marble, and Lauren held herself steady near the velvet rope as the Harringtons swept forward, polished smiles clipped into knives. You crashed our event, Serena Harrington declared, voice lacquered with disdain, bracelets chiming as if approval could be bought by noise. Maxwell hovered beside her, shoulders squared, chin lifted toward the security duo lingering by. The entrance podium and his practiced frown announced verdict before evidence. Emily, half a step behind Lauren, lifted her compact camera, lens already awake, red light winking. The torn paper pass lay like a wounded moth on the floor, and her shutter began whispering proof. A hush rippled through guests in tuxedoed black and plum velvet gowns. Champagne stopped mid-air, perfume mixing with chilled lilies, and somewhere a string quartet paused between movements as if listening for a cue that never came. "Ma'am," one guard muttered, uncertainty flattening his tone. "We were told the list is closed." Serena angled her body toward the guard without taking her eyes off Lauren. "Closed means closed," she said, the syllables brittle. Lauren kept her palms relaxed, breath measured, eyes level. "You're digging your own grave," she answered, the softness of her delivery landing heavier than shouting would have, like velvet masking iron. Jamal, standing near the ice sculpture shaped like a cresting wave, watched the exchange and gave a small, decisive nod, the kind that said he understood more than the room expected. Guests leaned closer to one another, whispering over rims of coupes, speculative consonants hissing, narratives forming on the fly. Emily crouched to frame the pass, catching the jagged edge where it had been deliberately torn, then rose for a clean shot of Serena's hand still clenched around the glossy program listing donors and schedules. "Ever been judged unfairly? Share your story below to stand with Lauren," Emily murmured for her caption, not loud, yet the sentiment caught on a passing silence like a seed on the wind. The guard nearest the rope shifted weight, looked at his partner, then at Maxwell, then at the camera. He had the posture of someone asked to step onto a bridge without knowing whether it held. Serena saw the hesitation and accelerated. "Security. Escort her out," she said. But the command sounded lighter than she intended, and several heads turned not toward Lauren but toward Emily's recording eye. Maxwell filled the gap, straightening his tux. "This is private," he insisted, but his gaze darted to the torn pass with the speed of guilt. Lauren's mouth curved into something that was not quite a smile. "Private occasions tend to invite public consequences," she said. Chandelier facets focused into bright needles above them, making every dust mote look like a drifting star, and the light cut the air so cleanly that people seemed etched into their positions, unable to step without scoring the scene. Jamal shifted, nearer the velvet rope, posture casual, hands unthreateningly open, but his eyes held attention. A few nearby guests noticed and unconsciously mirrored his stance, as if informed by an unseen rehearsal. "You tore the pass," Emily said, steady, not accusing, just observational, and she angled the camera screen up so the nearest onlookers could see the slashed laminate glinting under the chandelier. A whisper rose, sharp, collective intake, and then the quiet reclaimed the floor, denser now, like a storm cloud choosing whether to break. "Ridiculous," Serena said, though her earring trembled. Maxwell's thumb rubbed a crease into his cuff, smoothing fabric that refused to forget the pressure. The guard with the clipboard swallowed. "We'll need verification," he said, the syllables softened by nerves. "Of what?" Serena asked. "Of who has the authority to close the list," the guard replied, almost apologetic, as though authority itself required a signed receipt. Lauren glanced toward the registration desk, where a gold pen rested beside the guest ledger, the script on the top line unmistakable even from several paces. She didn't move to pick it up. "You already have it," she said, and her attention settled on Maxwell with the stillness of a gavel before the strike. "You're out of your depth," Maxwell shot back. But the line landed tinny, like a coin on tile, and a woman near the floral arch suppressed a laugh she couldn't justify. Emily's camera clicked again, patient, respectful, relentless. "We're hesitating because this is delicate," the second guard admitted, looking to Serena for permission to continue breathing. "A false claim could end careers. A true claim could end reputations." "I recommend truth," Lauren said. Jamal nodded once more, as if endorsing a motion in a meeting. The air smelled faintly of wax and citrus. The floor reflected everybody. Twice, reality lay over its own mirror, and nothing felt entirely committed to itself. Guests whispered, "Who is she?" And "Why the fuss?" And "Is this about the foundation?" Then quieted again, drawn by gravity toward Lauren's. "Calm." Serena lifted her chin. "Don't be dramatic," she said. But her voice had acquired a fine crack down the center, and Emily's audio would hear it. Lauren considered the distance between herself and the podium, the necessary steps, the way the room would tilt around even a small motion, and decided stillness served better. "No drama," she said. "Just memory." Maxwell rolled his shoulder, as if loosening a knot that wasn't in his muscle. "You're not on the list," he repeated, louder, aiming the sentence at the nearest tables so it would grow teeth. "We closed it hours ago?" "After you altered it," Emily added gently. A bare pause followed, too short to count as silence, long enough for meaning to surface. A guest near the bandstand drew a breath that sounded like the first bar of a hymn. The guard with the clipboard flipped the pages, scanning, finding what he already knew, not finding what he feared, and his eyes drifted toward the ledger again. "Look," Jamal said softly, and he pointed his chin toward the registration desk, not telling, just guiding. The guards navigated the gaze of 70 strangers and approached the ledger as if nearing a sleeping animal. Serena's hand shot out, but she stopped short of making a scene that couldn't be spun. "That book is decorative," she said, but nobody believed in decorative sign-in books at galas with monogrammed ice. Emily zoomed. Lauren waited. The chandelier light seemed to sharpen further, as if the facets were cutting away lies molecule by molecule, leaving only shapes that could bear scrutiny. Maxwell sighed, the sound almost theatrical, then turned his attention to the crowd. "Everyone, please enjoy the reception," he said, performing composure, but his pupils contracted slightly in the glare. "We'll sort this out." Here, the first guard's restraint held like a knot under a polished surface, and tension traveled through the rope stanchions into the floor, a current that found ankles and climbed. One guest whispered that blame always arrived dressed as courtesy. Another replied that courtesy often hid a blade. The quartet tested a single high note, let it hang, then retreated into silence again, as if music, too, hesitated to take sides. Emily repositioned, capturing Serena's profile, Maxwell's hand at his sleeve, Lauren's stillness, the ledger's gleam, the torn laminate's stubborn curve. The velvet rope cast a narrow shadow that looked almost like a signature, and someone near the lilies said it felt colder under the chandelier, as though the light itself had sharpened the air. The first guard glanced at the second, then at Lauren, at Serena, pupils tracking the quiet choreography of power. Jamal's nod returned, smaller than before, precise, like a metronome marking a measure no one else had learned. The second guard inhaled very slowly, and the silence hung like a bell. "Tone for everyone." Lauren lifted her phone into the chandelier's mirrored glow and let the room feel her steadiness. "Move the funds to Crestview Group," she said. "Execute the contingency protocol now." The words arrived flat and final, not theatrical, and conversation bent toward them. Eleanor's smile looked bored. "Darling, that's pocket change posturing." Victor chuckled. "Group texts don't transfer cash." Jamal, no tray now, spoke up. "You may want to wait before laughing." Emily Stone filmed from an angle that held both families of power in one shimmering plane. The quartet's rhythm tightened, strings stitching resolve through air polished by perfume and money. A guest whispered, "Did she say funds?" Another answered, "Crestview, 900 million." The figure moved like weather. Shoulders squared, eyes narrowed, posture recalibrated. Eleanor waved a cool hand. People throw numbers to seem tall. Lauren met her gaze without strain. I prefer numbers that are clear. On the screens, logos cycled. Crestview's emblem lingered a fraction, coincidence becoming signal. Victor slipped a hand into his pocket. "Who obeys your voice?" "People who answer when I call," Lauren said. She framed Victor's smirk, Eleanor's diamonds, Lauren's calm, and the guard's hovering restraint. Jamal stepped closer. "I watched the pass get torn. She asked for verification first." The taller guard gave a tiny nod. Procedure wrestling pride. Eleanor's tone sharpened. "Security will escort her. We will manage announcements." Lauren did not move. "You're already managing headlines, just not the ones you planned." At the bar, someone asked, "She moved what?" and heard, 900 million, the Carter package. Saying it aloud changed the floor. Chatter thinned as attention concentrated. Victor scoffed. "Nobody reallocates that kind of capital by whispering into a phone over music." Lauren's screen pulsed with confirmations. She didn't show them because certainty lives in posture. Eleanor's smile cooled. "Our family doesn't dance for theatrics." "Neither do markets," Lauren said. Devices buzzed throughout the hall. Unseen eyes pressed in from outside. Jamal planted his feet. She spoke clearly and asked for respect. That seemed fair. Victor turned on him. "Staff stays neutral." Jamal kept his tone even. "Staff sees everything." Lauren lifted the phone again. "Confirm rights, options, and vendor relationships. Shift to Crestview on acknowledgement. Halt Harrington access." Eleanor's bracelets chimed. "What makes you think our vendors obey you?" "Contract leverage," Lauren said. Marble reflected tension with cold precision, like a transcript written in light. Emily filmed hands because hands confess. Victor's tightening, Eleanor's settling, Lauren's steady. A guest in Navy murmured, "Her name is trending." Eleanor gestured again. "Remove her." The guard advanced, then stopped as simultaneous alerts flashed across his screen and his partner's. Lauren's eyebrow ticked. "There it is." Victor exhaled. "What now?" "A confirmation cascade," Lauren said. "You can feel the wires pull tight." From the balcony, someone said, "If that's the Carter deal, the night just flipped." Eleanor straightened. "Pledges are secure. Our partners honor commitments." "They honor terms," Lauren replied. Jamal spoke so the middle tables would hear. "Verify before accusing. That looked wrong." A small silence followed, a conscience at work under chandeliers. Victor spread his hands. "No one humiliates us and walks out superior." "You're doing that yourselves," Lauren said, still gentle, wholly unbending. Jamal drew breath. "I stand with her." Two servers and a logistics lead nodded without noise. Clarity rarely needs volume. Eleanor signaled for louder music, but the violins refused to rush. Victor said, "You're bluffing." "I'm building," Lauren answered. A woman at table 6 said, "I just got a reallocation alert involving Crestview." The hall rotated. Attention drifted from pedigree toward quiet command. Lauren folded her hands, making modern power look timeless. "Believe in fighting back? Hit like to amplify this moment?" she said to cameras and eyes alike. Eleanor bristled. "Soliciting applause is cheap. Asking people to witness isn't," Lauren said. Victor tried to be confident. "Crestview will wait." "It already didn't," Lauren answered. A researcher posted a thread predicting market shock if the deal jumped overnight. Guests who depended on predictability felt the floor tilt a degree. Jamal asked permission with a glance. Lauren nodded once. "Respect anchors every deal," he said. "Break it, and everything seeks a new address." Heads turned. The phrasing walked past service into principle. Eleanor's lips thinned. "You'll regret this tone." "Measured tone prevents regret," Lauren said. Victor raised his voice. "No one here owes strangers awe." "No," Lauren said. "Only fairness." Emily caught the guards reading a message twice, posture changing as protocol digested news. The alert carried Crestview in lowercase, a word about to become history with a capital letter. Air chilled despite the crowd. Power can lower the temperature. Faster than vents, Lauren spoke for the record. Crestview holds preference, premium options, and supplier gateways under the contingency clause. Document receipt. Eleanor exhaled slowly. "Your voice doesn't create authority." "Neither does jewelry," Lauren said, glancing once at the diamond choker before returning to her eyes. Victor stepped, then halted at the guard's open palm. Jamal folded his arms behind his back, formality doubling as a shield. The quartet settled into an anthem of resolve, neither loud nor meek, simply sure. Emily narrated softly, "We are witnessing a pivot. Watch posture, watch devices, watch the room align." Eleanor tried a new door. "You want decorum. Apologize for the disruption, and we'll revisit the matter." "Decorum begins with respect," Lauren said. "You broke it." Her phone chimed with a final acknowledgement. She didn't display it because the sound was enough. The chandelier felt less decorative, more like a witness light. A cautious donor raised a glass toward Lauren in a small salute, then set it down untouched. Victor changed tactics. "Think of the charities. Don't make them collateral." "I made them a promise," Lauren said. "Transparency keeps promises alive." Emily swung to the screens as Crestview's emblem lingered a fraction again, inviting whispers. The taller guard addressed Eleanor carefully. "Given the volume of external confirmations and pending ledger notes, we recommend allowing the guest to remain while we reconcile entries." Eleanor froze for a weighted breath. Lauren inclined her head to the guards, acknowledgement without triumph. Victor flushed. "Spin. All of it." "Proof tends to look like this," Lauren said. Jamal added, "Feels like this, too." The quartet paused, then restarted with slightly higher confidence, following physics rather than pedigree. A message from a Crestview executive reached 3 guests at once, each reading, then weighing her differently. Eleanor sensed drift. "Whatever you imagine controlling still requires our blessing." "I prefer results to blessings," Lauren said. Emily lifted her voice enough for the nearby tables. "This is Emily Stone at West Haven Grand Ballroom. A transfer decision appears underway, with credible chatter tying it to a $900 million framework." The word credible moved like a badge pinned to the moment. Jamal stepped half a pace forward. "I believe her." Eleanor snapped. "You're out of line." "I'm in line with truth," he answered. Victor gestured toward the doors. "End this." The guard didn't move. Lauren let the silence stack for 3 beats. "We proceed when respect lives here." Phones buzzed again. A cluster of guests lifted cameras openly toward Lauren instead of the hosts. Even those who disliked surprises recognized the cadence of command after execution. Emily ended a clip, started another, and tagged the stream with precise language, instead of hype. Jamal's shoulders lowered a fraction, not relaxed, only sure. Victor looked smaller, not shamed by insult, reduced by reality. Eleanor stood glittering and still while the current flowed around her grip. Lauren set the phone on linen beside the tower, hands free now, presence uncontained by anyone's seating chart. No one cheered, Yet approval moved underfoot like a tide, and marble carried it wherever eyes landed. Now. Chandelier facets glittered while speeches faded, and servers drifted toward exits, and Lauren stepped forward, steady enough to hold a storm inside a still glass. Serena Harrington's smile shrank, Maxwell's cufflinks flashed, and dozens of phones rose like metallic petals as guests sensed something irreversible approaching. Jamal edged near the soundboard, Emily lifted her camera higher, and security hovered, unsure whether to intervene or to watch history write itself. Lauren cleared her throat, waited until the quartet's last note dissolved, then spoke. "Some of you asked who I am," she said, voice calm, cadence deliberate. "I am Lauren Carter, Chief Executive of Carter Global." A current ran through the ballroom. A donor whispered an oath, the florist steadied a tilting arrangement, and Serena blinked hard as if dust had jumped beneath her eyelid. Maxwell forced a laugh that did not quite land. "Colorful introduction," he said. Lauren did not look at him. "My firm architected the Crestview transaction you toasted earlier," she continued. $900 million, cross-border, multi-jurisdictional approvals, contingent earnouts, escrowed tranches, performance gates. We built it. She lifted a hand toward the registration ledger, then let it fall. We also reserved the right to cancel. Silence compressed. Emily's camera light winked as she found focus. Serena reached for confidence and grabbed air. "Even if that were true, you would not choose this venue for theatrics," she said. "Share concerns on Monday like a professional." Lauren's expression did not change. "Concerns were shared on Monday," she replied. "You declined to acknowledge them." Jamal nodded, the gesture small, punctuating the sentence like a period. "Let's remain practical," Maxwell interjected, measuring the room. "Investors are here, media may be near, and nobody wants spectacle." Lauren turned slightly so the nearest phones could see her face without obstruction. "Practicality is exactly why I am here," she said. "During diligence, our team uncovered material misrepresentation surrounding vendor concentration, debt covenants, and undisclosed litigation exposure. Further, your latest claims regarding philanthropic endowments appear inflated against filed statements." Gasps cracked across the space like thin ice. Serena's jaw set. "Defamation invites consequences," she said. Lauren's response landed softly. "Disclosure invites confidence. Concealment invites consequence." She paused, allowing the chandelier to pour light over every syllable. "The room vibrated with her words," someone breathed, not realizing. They had spoken aloud until heads turned. "Additionally," Lauren continued, "sanctions screening flagged an intermediary beneficial owner with unresolved exposure, and our ESG committee identified governance failures incompatible with our mandate. We requested remediation. You chose messaging." Maxwell stepped closer, lowering his voice out of habit rather than strategy. "Even if issues exist, unwind privately. You know how markets react." Lauren tilted her head. "I also know how markets recover when integrity shows up early. Carter Global will not fund what cannot withstand daylight. Therefore, effective immediately, we are canceling it for Crestview Group." The sentence landed like a struck bell. Ripples unfolded from the dais to the balcony, down marble steps, across the mirrored floor. Applause began near the bar, tentative at first, then confident as people decided who they wanted to be recorded supporting. Phones captured angles, captions wrote themselves, and somewhere beyond the doors, a publicist's calendar burst into flames. Serena staggered one half step, like a dancer missing a cue. Maxwell reached for a retort and found none. "You cannot," Serena managed, voice rattling. "Signatures were made." Lauren's gaze did not waver. "Conditions precedent were not satisfied," she said. Your own council agreed language permitting termination upon discovery of material adverse change and governance red flags. Your team initialed every page. She gestured toward Emily. Independent documentation exists. Emily raised the camera slightly in acknowledgement without breaking professional neutrality. Jamal exhaled, relief and resolve braided in one breath. A guest in a midnight jacket muttered that Whitmore once underestimated a rival during a merger, roadshow, and never regained footing. Murmurs spread, threading the Harringtons' present disarray to that old shock. Maxwell tried another tack. Think of jobs, he said. Think of suppliers, communities, families, institutional partners, bound to forecasts. Lauren nodded. That is why we escalated privately, offered phased remedies, recommended interim credit lines, and proposed audited transparency before closing. Your responses prioritized optics over operations. Stability cannot rest on fiction. A board member near the lilies pinched the bridge of his nose, suddenly interested in oxygen. The quartet, sensing permission, let a single cello note hum under the conversation, cinematography translating into sound. Know someone who needs this story? Share it to spark change. The call traveled across the room on tiles of screen light, an invitation and a mirror. Serena straightened and tried to summon aristocratic cool. If you walk away, you will face litigation, she said. Tortious interference, reputational damage, anti-competitive collusion. Lauren's reply came with the clean calm of someone who had already read every paragraph. Our council welcomes discovery. Every email, version history, calendar entry, side phones buzzed beneath linen and velvet as push notifications stacked in relentless columns. Carter Global cancels Crestview deal, governance failures confirmed, termination triggers satisfied, independent counsel engaged, live stream contradicts Harrington statements. Faces turned pallid under chandelier facets, while whispers changed direction, drifting toward Lauren like iron filings finding a magnet. Serena stared at her screen as if brightness alone could reverse an outcome. Maxwell's thumb flicked upward, through headlines until his hand trembled. Servers slowed, reading cues, then resumed with smaller steps, careful not to clatter trays that might puncture the moment. The quartet zipped bows into cases, murmuring apologies to no one, leaving, their last note to dissolve without ceremony. A sponsor who had earlier crowded Serena now angled toward Lauren, bringing along two colleagues who had spent the evening reciting forecasts. They stopped reciting. A florist gathered stray stems near the dais, suddenly part of the narrative, eyes wide at how fast status could drain. The room didn't cheer exactly. Applause had already happened. What followed felt heavier, a shifting of alliances you could almost taste. Investors compared alerts, then moved their bodies 4 steps, toward Lauren and 3 steps away from the Harringtons. A trustee checked messages from legal, swiveled, and quietly asked Lauren's team whether a morning call could be scheduled with compliance. The answer was yes, and relief washed across the trustee's face. Not joy, merely relief at knowing a plan existed. Serena tried to lift her chin as if posture alone could recreate authority. Maxwell attempted to corral a departing cluster with a clutch of smiles and a promise of clarifying statements. The cluster nodded while stepping backward. One man squeezed Maxwell's shoulder with the practiced sympathy used for funeral parlors and high school reunions. Then he turned off his phone flashlight, which he hadn't realized was on, and went to find his coat. Emily's angle widened to capture the quartet packing up, the monogrammed ice losing its crest, the velvet rope slackening as security stopped guarding a center that no longer mattered. Within minutes, Emily's live stream went viral, viewership spiking as comments stacked and mirrors of the ballroom multiplied across phones around the city. Her stream caught micro scenes that explained macro collapse. A donor who had pledged, during dessert opened a banking app, canceled a transfer, and typed a message requesting audited updates before any funds moved. A junior analyst whispered that he had warned about revenue concentration months ago. His supervisor, hearing it in public for the first time, nodded without defensiveness and said they would revisit procurement next week. Across the floor, an alumna of Crestview's first cohort read a push notification and pressed her lips tight, then walked to Lauren and said thank you in a voice that sounded like someone recovering their balance after ice. Jamal stood slightly apart, keeping watch, while not inserting himself, the embodiment of witness. He saw the moment two board members separated from Serena's orbit and headed toward the hallway where the fresh air waited. He saw a reporter lower her voice and ask for comment from Lauren's counsel only, not from the hosts. He saw a vendor, palms still scented with citrus polish from the rental chairs, whispering thank you into the space as if gratitude itself could be heard by someone who had risked something. Push notifications kept arriving with unpleasant regularity. One offered a clip of Emily's footage showing the torn pass on marble, a caption noting that accusations had preceded evidence. Another displayed a statement from a ratings agency placing a watch on a Harrington affiliate. A third announced that a compliance consultancy had resigned from an advisory relationship. A fourth noted a webinar request titled, "What Due Diligence? Misses When Charm Performs." People around the room did not relish catastrophe. They were simply done pretending uncertainty was fog instead of smoke. A volunteer at the check-in desk closed the ledger, running fingers along the gold-edged paper, with reverence, as though preserving a historic artifact. She had watched Serena earlier, brows arched, voice lacquered, telling security to remove a guest. Now she watched Serena shrink inside expensive fabric. Reputation did not shatter here. It thinned, became transparent, and revealed workmanship. Maxwell tried calling. Nobody answered on the first ring. He left 3 brief voicemails insisting that markets appreciated stability and that a joint statement would arrive soon. He knew the statement could not arrive soon. He asked an assistant to find counsel. The assistant had already stepped into a stairwell and was texting a resume to 2 different firms, both of which had liked a clip from Emily's stream. Serena found a mirror and adjusted. Glass walls reflected the skyline like steel etched with sunrise, and the Carter Global boardroom thrummed with deliberate motion as Lauren sat at the head of the walnut table, her posture balanced, her expression neither indulgent nor weary. Across from her, Crestview executives aligned laptops, muted phones, and waited with the disciplined focus of people who knew the evening before had detonated a market chapter. Beside Lauren, Naomi, her chief of staff, leaned forward with 2 tablets stacked, one displaying vendor transition schedules, the other live market data that pulsed with restless red and green. Harrington Capital down 15% intraday, Naomi reported, her voice calm, numbers crisp. Trading volume is 4 times the average. Sell-side analysts citing governance exposure. Syndicated notes already repricing counterparty risk. Crestview's CFO, gray suit impeccable, tapped his pen once. We prepared contingency bridges. Vendor contracts are being rerouted through escrow accounts we control. No service interruption expected. Lauren nodded. Good. Stability first. Naomi scrolled, highlighting key entries. 39 critical suppliers signed transition letters. Overnight, 12 more agreed contingent upon compliance clauses. 2 require extended onboarding, but operational continuity is secured. The COO from Crestview added, Our comms lead has framed this as a continuity enhancement. No punitive framing. Vendors want assurance, not drama. Lauren turned slightly. That framing must hold. We are not celebrating collapse. We are preserving credibility. Market feeds rolled across Naomi's screen. Harrington bonds widened 180 basis points, she said. Credit desks are quoting secondary liquidity at steep discounts. Derivative spreads suggest counterparties no longer trust overnight rollovers. The Crestview CEO exhaled, once, measured. Their board called twice. We declined. Lauren's gaze moved to him. Decline politely, but keep a record. Every message matters. Around the table, associates tracked tasks, contract novations, KYC refresh cycles, and environmental screening. One analyst adjusted his glasses and read aloud. By noon, we will have locked Harringtons out of vendor networks, including logistics, platforms and procurement dashboards, access privileges already disabled, tokens revoked. Confirm audit logs, Lauren said. I want regulators to see trail integrity. Naomi tapped a stylus. Done. Immutable entries verified. Parallel copies stored in compliance vault. A Crestview executive cleared his throat. Public narrative? Naomi answered before Lauren had to. Carter Global's position. Governance is non-negotiable. Crestview's position. Stability is preserved. Joint statement. Integrity scales better than speculation. The boardroom absorbed it like oxygen. Lauren leaned back slightly, letting the skyline mirror her stillness. Markets dislike surprise, she said, so we must script every next step until surprise is impossible. A silence. Then the COO spoke. Analysts compare this to Whitmore's fallout. The difference is velocity. You close channels overnight. Whitmore bled for months. Lauren allowed a brief glance at Naomi, then back to the group. Velocity limits rumor. Rumor is oxygen to collapse. We cut supply. Phones buzzed quietly. Naomi reviewed and summarized. 3 regulators request an early briefing. One asked whether termination clauses were invoked pretextually. Our counsel replied, documentation available. Discovery welcome. Lauren nodded approval. Send the minutes from diligence sessions. Highlight remedial offers ignored. Show that escalation was structured. The stronger the paper, the quieter. The noise. A Crestview strategist interjected. Media spin frames you as both savior and executioner. How do we balance tone? Lauren answered plainly. By remembering who our audience is. Markets want predictability. Vendors want continuity. Workers want payroll. We speak to them, not to headlines. Everything else is commentary. The strategist typed quickly, relieved by clarity. Naomi checked. Another column. Investor calls are scheduled hourly through the end of the day. Portfolio managers are already shifting exposure from Harrington affiliates into Crestview tranches. Net inflow favors us by $87 million so far. The CFO's pen clicked once. Liquidity cushion secured. Jamal, now serving in an advisory role after last night's witness, entered quietly with a folder. He placed it before Lauren. Inside, signed affidavits from security detailing how Serena demanded Lauren's removal. Emily's footage is already time-stamped and notarized, evidence sealed for future defense. Lauren skimmed, then slid the folder toward Naomi. Archive. We only release if litigation escalates. Naomi nodded, already filing it into encrypted records. The room felt taut, not tense, like a string tuned precisely. Lauren adjusted her voice slightly softer. This is consolidation, not conquest. Harringtons failed themselves. We simply prevented contagion. The Crestview COO leaned forward. Still, they will resist. They may rally media. The skyline of West Haven glowed like polished steel bathed in late evening fire. Towers traced with amber lines, while glass facades carried the reflection of a city still moving, still breathing, yet strangely quieter from the vantage of Carter, Global's executive floor. Lauren stood at her office window, a silhouette against the city's pulse, coffee steaming gently on the desk behind her, the faint aroma of roasted beans anchoring the space. Papers lay stacked in precise order, contracts reviewed, schedules marked, minutes prepared. Yet her gaze remained on the horizon where daylight slid into night. In the corner, the shredder hummed once when she fed it a sealed envelope embossed with the Harrington crest. The paper vanished strip by strip, each line of ink erased into ribbons, symbolic closure carried out without drama. She did not open, The letter did not pause to wonder whether apology, demand, or accusation lived inside. For her, relevance ended at the seal. Authority was not negotiated on paper mailed too late. Authority was vested in decisions that already carried consequences. The hum faded, leaving the office in near silence save the whisper of air circulation and the soft tick of a wall clock that marked time with a calm cadence. She turned, lifted the coffee, felt warmth through porcelain, and watched the steam curl into the lamplight. Naomi had departed hours earlier after confirming final reports, Jamal had left after ensuring media requests were routed, and Emily was editing her footage for archival record. Alone now, Lauren absorbed the solitude. That follows a storm. It was not loneliness, it was space earned. Her screen displayed financial networks running loops of her announcement. Headlines scrolled. Carter, global CEO, cancels $900 deal over governance failures, integrity as strategy, Carter's bold stand, markets applaud responsible termination. Anchors dissected her phrasing, analysts replayed the calm with which she had spoken. She muted the sound, preferring stillness to applause, yet the movement of ticker symbols along the bottom of the screen confirmed what mattered. Crestview stable, Carter Global steady, Harringtons down 15% and sliding. Market language required no embellishment. Across the office, framed photographs caught the amber glow, a factory visit where she shook hands with line workers, a board meeting where she signed the first billion-dollar closing, a candid shot Naomi once captured of her reviewing documents. Under a single lamp at 2 a.m., these were reminders of continuity, not trophies. She returned to the window, sipping slowly, tasting both bitterness and warmth. The skyline shimmered with lights from offices where others, too, wrestled with balance sheets, contracts, and obligations. She thought of them, not with superiority, but with recognition. Leadership was not a stage. It was weight distributed across hours, choices, and risks that often arrived uninvited. The unopened Harrington letter, now ribbons in the shredder bin, symbolized more than closure. It symbolized a refusal to carry narratives others constructed when truth had already spoken. No need to preserve protest when evidence had prevailed. No need to archive accusations when compliance logs already document everything. A reporter's voice, muted but visible in captions, called her a corporate trailblazer. She considered the word without indulgence. Trailblazing, she thought, meant not fireworks but footsteps pressed where resistance expected retreat. It meant refusing to disguise hesitation as strategy. It meant recognizing that governance failures were not obstacles to be tolerated but signs to be acted upon. Steam rose again, faint, almost ghost-like, reminding her that warmth disappears quickly if ignored. She held the cup closer, inhaled, then set it gently down. On her desk lay tomorrow's agenda: early call with trustees, vendor transition progress, regulator briefing, philanthropic reassignments. Each line is written in a calm font, nothing theatrical, only necessary. She flipped one page back and added a note in her own hand. Review lesson. Codify process. Legacy lived not in spectacle, but in systems. Outside, the skyline brightened. Further, as billboards shifted to evening cycles. One displayed her image from the gala, captured mid-sentence, captioned with integrity scales. She felt neither pride nor discomfort, only a reminder that visibility carried obligation. The city would remember her words. She must ensure her firm embodied them long after headlines faded. In the stillness, she recalled her calm statement. "You're digging your own grave?" Delivered not with malice, but with foresight. She knew. Tonight the Harringtons sat in rooms lit by two bright lamps, scrolling through falling charts, crafting narratives nobody would believe. She had no interest in their ruin was their own. Her task was to ensure others did not inherit their errors. A breeze nudged against the glass, reminding her that above, towers, air moved freely, indifferent to titles or fortunes. Authority, she thought, must resemble that. Unshakable not because it resists change, but because it moves with integrity, no matter how the current shifts. She turned back to her desk, opened a journal bound in leather, and wrote one line. Never confuse silence with absence, nor presence with authority. She closed it and placed it beside the cooling cup. Phones on her desk blinked with messages she would answer tomorrow. Tonight required reflection, not reaction. The shredder bin held ribbons of paper that once carried Harrington's ambition. The skyline held light that would outlast both her triumph and their collapse. Somewhere below, traffic hummed, horns layered with voices, the city continuing its rhythm. She breathed deeply, steady, measured, then allowed herself a single acknowledgement. Authority had weight, but tonight she carried it without falter. Seen power shift like this? Comment to join the conversation. The phrase scrolled across a muted feed again, now embedded in thousands of reposts. She let the words stand, not as performance, but as invitation. People would comment, debate, critique, and applaud. None of it. Screens glowed across West Haven before dawn had fully broken, notifications pushing the same headline in urgent cadence. Carter Global sets industry standard. Financial networks looped analysis. Trade journals published overnight columns, and social platforms replayed Emily's footage until it became the city's pulse. In corner cafes, commuters glanced at their phones and whispered about the woman who had canceled $900 million with composure. In glass towers, junior associates clipped articles, highlighting phrases they wished their own firms would echo. In the Carter Global headquarters, Lauren stepped into her office again, the skyline stretched wide like a canvas newly washed with clarity. Her name already illuminated the side of the tower in blue-white light. Carter, bold and crystalline, visible across the harbor. It wasn't vanity. It was an announcement that integrity had scale. The Harringtons, by contrast, slipped into obscurity, with visible speed. Their feeds shrank to muted apologies, investors departed with statements of regret, and allies withdrew support quietly but decisively. Stock slid further overnight, another 3%, as analysts removed buy ratings, one by one. Vendors confirmed rerouted contracts, regulators announced inquiries, and by morning, their network resembled scaffolding stripped bare. Where once their presence filled galas with confident chatter, now silence gathered. No invitations circulated. No speeches requested, no voices amplified. Erasure was not loud. It was quiet exclusion, door after door closing until no corridor remained. Lauren did not dwell on their collapse. Her boardroom agenda focused on continuity, vendor stability, compliance reviews, and philanthropic allocations under independent trustees. She reminded her team that governance was not spectacle, but system, that legacy would be measured in predictable payrolls, in contracts honored, in transparency maintained. Naomi, precise as ever, reported that regulators praised Carter Global's documentation. Jamal added that media sentiment shifted from shock to admiration. Emily confirmed her footage had been licensed for archival study by a business school. "We never intended theater," Lauren said, her tone even. "But if clarity resonates, let it teach." Phones buzzed again. Market feeds scrolled with fresh banners. Carter Global lauded for decisive governance. Crestview stabilizes under Carter stewardship. Analysts call Carter Playbook a model. Applause was digital now, likes and shares multiplying, comments layering on commentary. For Lauren, these were ripples, not anchors. She stood by the window, overlooking streets alive with morning rhythm, buses threading intersections, vendors, unlocking stalls, students with headphones crossing lights. Leadership, she thought, was not stagecraft. It was scaffolding invisible to those who depended on it, yet strong enough to carry weight without falter. She turned back to her desk. where a folded page of yesterday's notes lay. She wrote one sentence: "Legacy is clarity without compromise." Then she set the page into a file marked "Internal Reflection," not for release, only for record. Across the city, billboards pulsed her name alongside words like governance, integrity, and stability. They were shorthand for what had happened. But Lauren knew words could erode unless lived repeatedly. That was her charge now, to live them again and again until repetition no longer sounded like promise, but like reality. Markets responded with speed. Inflows favored Crestview. Portfolios redistributed away from Harrington affiliates. Within hours, financial desks confirmed what had been whispered. Influence no longer belonged to the old guard. Carter Global set. The Tempo and others would follow. The Harringtons were no longer players. They were a cautionary line in a compliance lecture, an annotation in governance slides. Meanwhile, Carter Global was invited to panels, committees, and advisory boards. Invitations poured in. Lauren accepted selectively, understanding that legacy was diluted if scattered. She chose forums where her voice shaped systems, not headlines. Naomi ensured each commitment aligned with strategy. Jamal verified continuity. Emily achieved impact. Together, they formed a team whose rhythm matched the pulse